BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Have you ever been on a food walk, trailing after food? Was it a bit of a laugh and some good tastes, or perhaps something more? I'm Sheila Dillon, and in this episode of the food programme, we follow along and try to find out why thousands of us are now walking these trails.
So, we're going to taste something very special here. We're going to be tasting smoked salmon that John, who you'll meet in a minute, smokes himself in the smoker, which he's got both a hot smoker and a cold smoker at the back.
Shall we get you guys started on some cheese? Here's me talking about it. So this one here is called Bosworth Field. Tuck in. If you have the cheese first, and then we've done a pairing.
So in a couple minutes here, once we finish up with our barbecue pork belly bites, we're going to head over to from quite a meat-centric restaurant to a vegan deli next. So we're going to go to...
Trailing food in Bristol and Melton Mowbray, though we could have recorded similar trails in Edinburgh or Lincoln or Manchester or Belfast or... well, what's going on?
My name is Professor Una McMahon-Beattie. I am Professor of Hospitality Management within the Ulster University Business School. One of my areas of research and key research interest is food tourism. People who travel for food, who engage in food tours, tend to be higher spending tourists, and they bring obviously wealth and economic prosperity. One of the fastest growing segments is food tours, culinary trails. It's definitely going to be where we see the growth moving forward. I came across a couple of reports recently, and one was looking at global culinary tourism or food tourism, and they estimated that in 2024 the size of that was around $1,009 million in 2024, and they estimate by 2032 that will go up to a staggering $3,767 million.
Those are global figures, and that's a lot of money. But some of it's now being spent in the UK, as you'll hear. But what we're trying to uncover in this programme is something more. Trying to find out if food tours are just the newest phase of food as entertainment, and we have a lot of that about. Or could it be the beginnings of a regional and local base for that food security we so lack? As Professor Tim Lang documented earlier this year in his report, Just in Case, 7 Steps to Narrow the UK Civil Food Resilience Gap, and which he talked about to us on the food programme.
The notion is that you can, as I've called it many times, leave it to Tesco et al. And that 9 companies that dominate, will have 94.5% of the take-home retail food market, that's okay. So there's a lack of planning, a lack of thinking about the public's need for food. You've got to have a more distributed food system.
The need for a food system we can rely on beyond what Tim Lang calls leave it to Tesco et al. Hit the headlines again this week, with Marks & Spencer's head of food calling on the government to set a legally binding concrete target to increase the proportion of food produced at home. In Melton Mowbray, we had a taste of what that could mean.
There's someone just up at Hollands where they're starting to grow their own trout, so we're working with them to do some smoked trout. They've got a great little system where they can grow it all there. It's a little modular system that anyone could do, if they've got a bit of farm space. From that, they then use the water, it grows all the herbs. From a small little area, you could potentially use a lot of stuff that you don't have to rely on a wider scope of stuff. So that's just one example of that, but obviously working with the local dairies, they all get their milk from local farms. You've got your cheese, then we do a bit of smoking of it. There's a lot of products and a lot of things that we can do locally, grow locally and source locally, I suppose.
Like the ingredients for those pies in Melton Mowbray.
You look at how many products we've got in this country that are protected. It's really not that many compared to a lot of other countries, but that doesn't mean that we don't have great things. We're just not very good at protecting them and protecting that heritage on those products.
And while doing that, making real to the food trailers, as I'll call them, the connection between the food on their plates and the fields where it began its life.
A walk is for the body, but a pilgrimage is for the soul. And if you do that with food, we see that every bite has a journey. And a food pilgrimage makes that kind of real.
Making it real, which is what we're trying to do today, beginning in Melton Mowbray in Leicestershire. 8 of us, with Matt and Sheila of Hidden Food Tours.
So would anybody like some beer to go with their pork pie?
This was commissioned specially by the old pork pie shop to go with the variety of their pork pies. And it's made of 11 different hops.
Yeah.
So they've really tried to sort of hone in on the right flavours to go with the pie. So we'll just give you a little sample.
Matt and Sheila's food tour is a 3-hour stroll around the town, billed as a journey where every bite tells a story. 8 people, as I said, are booked in, and most have received it as a gift. It costs £75 per head. Now we're all sitting in the sunshine at tables set out on a wide pavement, each of us with slices of 3 different pork pies on plates in front of us.
I'm just curious if anybody here knows what the difference is between a pork pie and a Melton Mowbray pork pie. No?
They're better in Melton Mowbray.
They are obviously better in Melton Mowbray. You're absolutely right. But they were given the PGI status back in 2009. There are 3 things that make a Melton Mowbray pork pie different to other pork pies that you find in the UK. They are made with an uncured meat, uncured pork. They follow a particular spice list. You have to be within a certain curtilage of Melton Mowbray to be able to give it the name of a Melton Mowbray pork pie. And most importantly, it can't be cooked in a ring. It literally is moulded around a dolly. It is then baked in the oven, and it then kind of has a slightly collapsed, dumpy look in comparison to a pork pie that's been cooked in a ring, which is what the rest of them will be cooked in. What you've got in front of you here are 3 pork pies, and I want you to guess. One of them cannot take the name of a Melton Mowbray pork pie. One of them is the current champion Melton Mowbray pork pie. And that changes. I tell you, there are pie wars in this town for that role. And one of them is a single origin pork pie. So dig in, sample the pies, please, and let's have a catch up about which one you think is each.
I really liked that we had a tasting of Melton Mowbray pork pies, because I think most people tend to think, well, a Melton Mowbray pork pie is a Melton Mowbray pork pie, and they were all quite different. And our table was all of the view that the one from the farm was outstanding. Peppery and lots of jelly, important in my view, but then I don't come from this part of the world.
Well, I come from Lancashire, and we have good pork pies there if you know where to look. When I lived in New York City, I'd occasionally make one to remind myself of home. There's a lot of comfort in a pork pie, especially a really good one. And that one from the farm in the tasting was really, really good. So, although it wasn't part of the food trail, I nipped off to the farm to understand better how they do it, as well as to buy some to take home.
My name's Nick Tooley. I'm the operations manager here at March House Farm. It's kind of an ambassadorial product for us here, in that we take quite a lot of pride in it. It obviously carries the PGI of Melton Mowbray pork pies, meaning it has to be made in a certain demographic and a certain way. But we try to take that a little bit further, in that our pies are totally hand-raised. We're using our own pork from here on the farm. And not only that, but recently, as a grower in the agri side of our farm, as a grower for Wild Farmed, who are excellent at what they do, our wheat goes to Wild Farmed. We buy their flour 100%. So we're also using our own wheat within the pastry that we make here on site as well. So we're trying to move towards as close as we could ever get to a single origin pie when you're talking about food miles and that kind of thing.
It really is remarkable. I mean, because in a sense, I've just come back from being on holiday in France, and it's the sort of thing that you could imagine in France. But here we are in Leicestershire with this, as you say, a single origin pie. Your own,
as close as we can get to it.
Yes, your own pork, your own flour.
Yes.
What do you think about this food tour? Are they significant? Do they matter? I mean, do they make any difference to you?
Well, certainly, yes. I think that in this country, you just mentioned being in France, most of mainland Europe has got AOCs and DOPs, and they care about products, their history and their tradition. It's taught in schools, it's their culture of food. We're a little bit behind that. We're going in the right direction as a country, but I think you look at how many products we've got in this country that are protected. It's really not that many compared to a lot of other countries, but that doesn't mean that we don't have great things. We're just not very good at protecting them and protecting that heritage. For example, Red Leicester cheese, of which there's some fantastic ones locally, Long Clawson, for example, Spark and Hoe. That's not a protected product, and it should be. It's a really traditional, great product. Pork pies are protected, it's great, like Stilton, but no, things like the tours, understanding rural food capitals like Melton Mowbray is, no, I think it's a great thing for food to be able to explain to people, show people. I hate saying educate people because it's a bit patronising, but just introducing people to things that are fantastic and have been for hundreds of years and the history behind them.
Melton Mowbray had a 10-year struggle to get its pies legally protected against imitations under EU legislation, a protection that's now been taken over by the UK government post-Brexit. The struggle was led by Matthew O'Callaghan. Now he's a food tour enthusiast.
They are becoming much more popular as people want to know more about where their food comes from. In this country, we've got some of the best food in the world. We've got a vibrant food heritage that goes back centuries, and we ought to be celebrating it. And these food trails, these food tours actually do that.
Matthew is chairman of the Melton Mowbray Food Partnership. Not only did he get Melton Mowbray pies legal protection, but the signs at the railway station, immediately obvious as you step off your train, blazoning Melton as the rural capital of food, are also the result of his work. Food tours for him build on some crucial basics.
They do matter in that they actually give two aspects of it. One is they get people into the area and going to different producers, maybe in rural locations where nobody would normally visit, and so finding them out and buying product from them. But the other thing is that they establish a reputation for the area as a food destination. And certainly in the Melton area, we earn over £100 million a year on food tourism related to our food heritage. That is significant. Hotels are busy, cafes are busy. It's all that sort of add-on. These days, people are curious about food. They want to know where it comes from, what's its history, all that sort of thing. And to that extent, if they can actually come to a place and experience that, then so much the better. And, they actually want to see things being made. There's a company in Melton does pies, and you actually have the pie experience. People want to actually make pies for themselves, learn about it. People want to learn skills. You've got the School of Artisan Food and other cookery schools where people are learning skills that, if it wasn't for this sort of movement, would be lost.
We've documented the School of Artisan Food on the food programme. It's a power source for the whole of the UK, the place to go to learn those skills for making the quality food that, as Matthew said, mustn't be lost. You can hear the programme on BBC Sounds. The school, like the town of Melton, is part of a long, rich heritage of food making, right in the centre of Stilton country. The history of Stilton and the pies is inextricable. It's dairying country, the milk made into cheese and the whey then fed to pigs, which is turned into pork, which went into the pies, that seem to have had their beginnings as food for the huntsman, because it was all around here that some of the oldest and most famous, some would say infamous, fox hunting packs in England, the Quorn, the Beaver, pursued their quarry.
You can see we're outside a shop called the Melton Cheese Boards. We're going to go in and taste some cheeses, including Stilton. Amy is the owner.
Hello, Amy.
And cheesemonger. Is that your?
Cheesemonger. Yeah, that's
on
me.
Your passport?
So Matt may have spoke to you about the history of Stilton, how important it is in this area. It can only be made in Leicestershire, Derbyshire, Nottingham. This one is made just on the outskirts of Nottingham at Colston Bassett. Get stuck in. And then for this one, we've paired it with a sticky fig jam.
How much of this cheese do you eat per day when nobody's watching?
Quite a lot. Quite a lot. Hello, my name's Amy Oakes and I'm owner of the Melton Cheese Board.
Hi Amy, I'm Sheila. Can I just ask you, I mean, what difference does a food tours make to the business?
It's really important to our business. As we're only small and we're just off the high street, so people don't always see us or find us. So something like Hidden Food Tours spreads a lot of awareness. They get people in from all over the country, as well as locals. I know they have gift vouchers and things, so people are coming and they're learning about the town and the food and discovering shops and businesses that they might not know existed. So we've certainly seen a boost from the tours. And if people enjoy it and have a nice time and learn something, they might tell their friends and family, they might come. So it's all good and it's all positive for us. So they're really important.
It's longer term than, just this Saturday morning.
Definitely. And spreading awareness and spreading the stories of the cheese and the products and the dairies as well that we supply. So it's not just about us and our business, it's the town, it's the dairies, it's the history.
It was sad that in Amy's shop we weren't able to taste what some people call the only real Stilton made in the area, Stitchelton. They can't use the Stilton name because Stitchelton is made from raw milk. When the EU gave Stilton its protected status, they enshrined a controversial regulation that Stiltons must be made from pasteurised milk, and the controversy lives on. Though what's definitely for sure is that Stitchelton and all the Stiltons now protected from imitators by the UK government's geographical indication scheme are some of the world's greatest cheeses. But there's more to the town than Stilton and pork pies.
This is the old cattle, or the current cattle market, and it's quite rare to have a cattle market that's so central in a town, but it's recently been rebranded as the Stockyard, and there's a huge regeneration project that's taking place over the next couple of years, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that. There's been a farmers market here on a Friday for a number of years, and in fact when I first moved up to the area, I came and sold my tarts from this very farmers market, and down there on the right hand side was where I had my stall, and a guy came and bought tarts from me at the first farmers market. He came back 5 weeks in a row, and he's now my husband. So you see, change your life through tarts and food. So we're going to go into the tavern, which is the pub where the farmers will come to often very early if they're selling their animals for a good beer and a bacon sarnie. So let's go in and meet the guys in here.
Before we could do any of the meat and taste, we were greeted by a figure who seemed to come from a different world, far from the homeliness and tradition of pies, cheese and beer. At 6 foot plus, dressed in a vivid purple silk chalwar kameez from neck to toe, and topped with a rich green silk turban, we met that vision that is the samosa, wallah.
Melton Mowbray, how are you doing? Having a good time? Famous for pork pies, but also famous for samosas, by the way. I'm sure you've been talking about samosas for the journey. Non-stop. So samosa wallah is my alter ego, but I'm half Indian, half English. Was born in India. Then obviously the food is being used as the fusion of the two cultures. I used to be in packaging, and I sold business to business. I used to go to a lady called Mrs. Sheikh, and she used to give me beautiful hot samosas. I must say they're even much better than samosa wallah. She had a magic recipe, and she made them homemade. And so I used to take the samosas to all these groups, and they used to say to me, "Oh, bring some samosas, would you please bring some samosas?" And they used to go very fast. And so I came home one day, and I was very frustrated about business-to-business selling because it takes so long, and you feel as if you've not got anywhere. And I thought, well, my samosas went very quickly again today. I was only there for 10 minutes, and they all loved them. So I went to this friend of mine who was a food marketeer who was wanting to build a food brand from scratch. And I said, what about samosas? Gave him some samosas. He said, very, very tasty. And so here we are. Samosas are very, very tasty. But it is a great, it's almost like karma, because it is basically celebrating everything I like about life.
What do you think is the reason why food tours like this are popping up all over Britain?
Because I think people love things local. They love to really find out about a local area in more depth. If you look at it from the outside, you could drive through Melton Mowbray and you'd say, what is it? It's a lovely, sleepy town. There's a nice cinema. It's got 2-3 good parks, and it's got 50,000 people living in it. And the area is lovely. So I think people just like to explore and spend time finding the hidden gems. But we're very proud of Melton Mowbray. I do love Melton Mowbray.
But this sign, when you...
And that is my sign. Unfortunately, I don't like that. It should really say famous for pork pie, stilton cheese and samosas. And sometimes we do put samosas on there, to be honest. We sometimes put it next, we put an arrow and then say, they're forgetting samosa wallah here. But they sometimes take that sign down.
So this is the sign as you get off the train. It says, welcome to Melton Mowbray, rural capital of food, home of stilton cheese, Melton Mowbray pork pies, and
samosa wallah. It's absolutely, it's like an arrow through my heart. That
I'm sure it will change soon.
With your help. With your help.
Around the corner from the pub illuminated by the samosa wallah is the Feast and Furious Smokehouse and its owner, John Oakes. For John, being in Melton Mowbray is all about collaboration.
It sounds as though you work with other quality producers in the area. This is a sourdough bagel I'm eating my smoked salmon on.
So they're, Olivia's Bakery. They've got a little unit just down here as well. They're sort of Loughborough based. But yeah, we love that. That's our thing. We love mixing with other businesses, their owners. It gives collaboration ideas. Like our fixtures and fittings, our lighting are old barrels that the brewery use to age their beers. And we use their barrels to smoke our meats over. And then we've used them for fixtures and bits. There's also
the hoops have been made into
light fixtures. So we love a little collab like that. We've done a beer barbecue sauce with their beer battered onion rings. So we work with them, but also further afield, there's someone just up at Hollands where they starting to grow their own trout. So we're working with them to do some smoked trout. So it's literally just up the road. We've got the cattle market at the back. If I could walk the cows straight in the back door and get them in the smoker, then we'd go for it. And then that's even shorter food miles. But
I mean, a serious point. I mean, earlier this year, Professor Tim Lang produced that report, for an agency about food security, showing how completely unfood secure Britain is. We have no contingencies virtually for weather, wars, anything. I mean, do you think this regional food could ever be more real for a bigger population?
Definitely. I think going back to the trout that's being reared just up the road, they've got a great little system where they can grow it all there. It's a little modular system that anyone could do, if they've got a bit of farm space. They could grow their own fish. From that, they then use the water. It grows all the herbs. That's just one example of that. But obviously working with the local dairies, they all get their milk from local farms. You've got your cheese, then we do a bit of smoking of it. There's a lot of products and a lot of things that we can do locally, grow locally and source locally, I suppose.
As the tour wound down and we ordered our exceptional beers from the Round Corner Brewery in the Stockyard, inspired by the microbreweries of the USA and Australia and run by two Irishmen, a brewer and a businessman, we asked our companions what they'd taken from their walk.
I just love the history and the food and the history and the food and the company and the jokes and the history and the food.
Whereas I prefer the food and the history than the company and the jokes.
£75 worth?
Absolutely, yeah, why not? It's been a lovely day. We've learned a lot about Melton Mowbray. We've enjoyed the food, we've enjoyed the company, and I didn't pay for it because it was a present, so that's always a plus, isn't it?
I mean, I concur with that, because what you're buying into is the creativity of the people who have put this together and curated it and researched it and bring it to life and so on. So you can't actually put a value on that, really.
Thank you all very much. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.
My name's Matt Hall. I am the co-founder and presenter of Hidden Food Tours.
And I'm Sheila Dillon, co-founder along with Matt of Hidden Food Tours.
What on earth made you co-found it?
God, it's an idea I've been brewing pretty much through lockdown. And when the hospitality industry kind of completely folded during lockdown, I was put on furlough. I thought, what am I going to do? Is there going to be a job for me after this? And my husband and I have done a food tour wherever we've been travelling. And it's my go-to. Whenever we book somewhere, it's what food tour's available, and we go. And when I moved up to this area back in 2006, I realised that there were lots and lots of food producers, but no one was telling their story. So fast forward post-COVID, when Matt and his wife Emma moved to where we live, in the Vale of Belvoir, another mad foodie, but came from a very different background to me, a media background. And the two of us just started talking about how we might be able to bring this tour together.
So we started off actually going like, oh, have you tried this? Or I've just picked up this bit of like chorizo, or I've just like, found this amazing shop selling this like fantastic kind of wine, or, so it grew out of our kind of shared passion, I guess, for just like really great local discoveries, just discovering stuff and enjoying telling people about those discoveries. It's that thing where you actually, middle-aged blokes love explaining stuff to people and telling them that they're not showing off their knowledge, and that's what Sheila managed to kind of persuade me to do in front of a group of people.
But we've managed, I think, to build an element of a community here. The producers all existed, but I think under the premise of researching for hidden food tours, we're very much a community now that support each other and want to be on this journey together to showcase what Melton Mowbray has, because I think a lot of people would say that Melton Mowbray is just about pork pies and Stilton, and I think hopefully you've seen today, and I guess certainly get to experience that there's a lot more to the place than that. And I've certainly loved being able to do all the research and keeping on top of new producers that come to the area and how we can incorporate them into the tour.
You make it sound, Charlotte, as though actually it's leading to growth of drawing more quality producers into the area.
Well, certainly with what's happening here at the stockyard, I think we're on the verge, hopefully, of being able to showcase even more producers at the stockyard once the redevelopment's taken place. But I think because we're always uncovering new producers and then adding them to our tour, then yeah, I would say you're probably right.
And Melton Mowbray is such a little place, really, isn't it? I mean, it's to have this richness of food and drink.
But you have to find it, pull it out, add it to the history that's here, curate it. That's really what we've done, is curate everything so that you get a seamless experience.
These food tours are popping up all over the country. What would you two say that's about? I mean, you've just explained your own story, but it seems to be part of something,
People tend to go on food tours when they're away in different locations around the world, and so more people are coming back and going, oh, actually, this is a thing that you can do in this country. There's a friend of ours in Chester who does these fantastic food tours. There's a friend of ours down in Saffron Walden who does like really good food tour.
There are over 40 independent food tours operated around the UK, excluding London and Edinburgh, because the big boys all home straight into those big two capitals, but it's the independent small food tour operators that is the burgeoning scene. That's where there's growth.
Matt and Sheila of Hidden Food Tours. Tours with big potential, says Matthew O'Callaghan, chair of the Melton Mowbray Food Partnership.
We did a survey with DEFRA, Food from Britain, and myself almost 20 years ago, and we identified 1,300 regional foods. Now, each of those areas could actually exploit that product in terms of a little tourism trail, or a tourism offering. And then from there, then you would visit such and such who's in the area. Why not visit the butcher? Or, it's that sort of thing. I think there's massive potential for food tourism and hospitality. I went to Arbroath with Angus County Council. The stuff that they've got, Kirramore gingerbread, they've got, the whiskey and whatever. But in Arbroath, you had a breakfast and it was just a plain breakfast, a fry-up. Well, you've got the Arbroath Smoky there, world famous. Why isn't there an Arbroath breakfast? It's incorporating your local foods into the whole of the hospitality sector. I mean, we've got a little town near us, about Melton, about 5 miles away, called Seiston. They have the Seiston plum. So someone does Sison jam. There's a nursery that goes Sison plum trees. There's someone that does Sison puddings. And they're so proud of it, they've even got it on the map saying, Sison, home of the Sison plum. God bless them.
Matthew O'Callaghan honing in on the central issue. If food tours are just another form of food entertainment, and the local food they're showcasing is not part of what's served in restaurants, cafes, hotels, and perhaps, who knows, the local branches of the big supermarket, then really, what's the point? Food tours come in many shapes and sizes. Some are self-guided using leaflets or apps or trails linked to food festivals. Guy Hayward is doing something quite different, leading food pilgrimages, walks that he hopes will connect his pilgrims to the source of their food, the fields, the soil, the trees, and the farmers.
Oh, there were 3 men came out of the west.
As well as being the founder and director of the British Pilgrims Trust, Guy is a folk singer and sings to his pilgrims stories about the land.
They ploughed, they sowed, they harrowed him in.
This is John Barleycorn, a song about the life cycle of barley.
Made a solemn vow, John Barleycorn was dead.
You organise a lot of pilgrimages, between cathedrals and sacred spaces, but you have moved into pilgrimages that are about food and farming. How did that happen?
For me, the difference is simple, really. A walk is for the body, but a pilgrimage is for the soul. And we're trying to find all the different ways that we can bring different elements of what it is to be human into that frame. And so if you do that with food, we see that every bite has a journey. Every bite that we eat has a journey, and it goes through the soil, through the farmer's hands, through the landscape, and then eventually ends up on our plate. And a food pilgrimage makes that kind of real. The meal is the holy moment. It's they're tasting the fields they've walked through. They've felt the difference between industrial farming, organic, biodynamic. Focusing on food, especially at this time when we are quite disconnected, is really helpful for people to actually know what good farming looks like and feels like and smells like in the landscape, and it's a really visceral experience. One of the food pilgrimage walks that we've done was with Patrick Holden, the former director of the Soil Association and now director of the Sustainable Food Trust, and he has a wonderful Hafod cheddar farm in Ceredigion, and there's the River Iron nearby, and it really runs right by his farm. And so we thought, why don't we walk from the source of the Iron to the sea? It's a 2-day walk and staying over at his farm, which is halfway down the river. There's something about walking a river. The river is the kind of holder of everything. And as you walk through the fields, it was wonderful to do it with Patrick, because he could just literally point at a field and know exactly how the farmer was farming it, and knew the methods, and really sort of enliven the experience, and like make all this stuff that's usually invisible to the average walker going through the countryside, make it totally visible. And you walk away realizing how much land, even in a beautiful, remote, wild part of Wales, is still farmed in these conventional ways. And we haven't gone back to that original way, which is more in line with nature and in communion with it and creating healthy food. So it's, I think, something that everyone needs to do, because otherwise you can't really get the connection with the land without walking through it. It can open up whole new worlds of understanding, and I think that's really what we need more than anything, to re-establish a love for the land.
And the people on that pilgrimage with you, how did they react to what Patrick was revealing?
Well, interestingly, it's not easy. They're not easy feelings. There's something quite sad and dark and heavy about being told what's really going on in a place that otherwise looks really beautiful. I mean, it looks green and there's lots of colour maybe, and you're in this wild, remote part of Wales, and you think, well, surely it can't be bad here, and yet it is. And that, I think, created feelings of discomfort. There are different layers to the experience.
You said that we all need to care for our bodies more. Nothing beats walking through fields. And you talked about the honouring of food.
As you start to listen to your body, you listen to how it responds to food. And when you eat good food, your body thanks you. and you feel good, and you feel, yeah, I can carry on. I've put good fuel inside myself. And particularly when you're a pilgrim, if you don't put good fuel inside yourself, you can't carry on to the next village or the next sleep point. So it's essential that we put good fuel inside us. And I think honouring of food is required, and we need to put food back more towards the top of the agenda rather than the bottom. And we need to value farmers as the people that give us health itself, rather than just people who are doing a kind of functional menial job, because it's the most valuable job of all.
Farming, the most valuable job of all. Yay to that. Guy Hayward. To end the programme, we're trailing in Bristol, a place we've documented on here many times for its food, on the plate and in the ground. In the Ground is a story we told in Growing Veg, Not Drugs, something else you can listen to on BBC Sounds. It's a city where the food programme has its home, and where, this year, we're holding the BBC Food and Farming Awards on November the 18th. Looking ahead to that, we judges have now worked our way through hundreds and hundreds of nominations to draw up long lists and then short lists. And a full list of the shortlisted nominees in all the categories is going up on the Food Programme website. All of us have been fascinated and heartened by what your nomination showed us. So we're in the process of visiting everyone on the shortlist. A few days ago, I, with Chair of Judges Hugh Fernley-Whittingstall, visited our 3 chosen best food producers: Courtyard Dairy in Yorkshire, Lovingly Artisan Bakery in Cumbria, and Flourish Veg and Fruit Farm in Cambridgeshire. How we pick the best of that trio, neither Hugh and I can right now figure out. But let's go back to the tours, because in Bristol, you can get a glimpse of that network of quality food production at Wapping Wharf, where restaurants and bars spill out of converted shipping containers, and where producer Robin Markwell joined his food tour.
But let me officially welcome everyone to the Wapping Wharf Street Food Tour. If I haven't mentioned already, my name's Miguel. I'll be your host for today. What we're about to embark on is a little culinary journey. So about 90 minutes together, we're going to visit 7 different street food restaurants, and I'll share the story of each place, how it started, and obviously we're going to enjoy food at each stop.
It's a sunny Saturday morning, and around a dozen of us are gathered on Bristol's docks.
I'll be right back. I'm going to grab the food for us.
We've been told to come hungry, and we're following the lead of Miguel Alzugaray, a restaurant manager turned tour guide.
What we're going to do is we're going to start off with the buffalo wing, I would say. So it's going to have a tiny little bit of a kick to it. What I usually recommend is pouring a little bit of the blue cheese sauce onto your buffalo wing before you pick it up, if you'd like the blue cheese sauce, all right?
He dashes in and out of restaurants, each time emerging with trays groaning with a dizzying array of delicious tasters.
Earlier, so everyone help yourself to a bagel hole Reuben sandwich. So our pizzas are ready. I'm going to slice them up for us, and each person's going to enjoy one slice. Final savory tasting for today, little miniature poke bowl. So you're going to have a bed of sushi rice underneath it. You're going to have marinated tofu, edamame beans. You've got pickled cucumber and pickled ginger, and a little bit of coleslaw as well.
Thank you.
And I'm going to get plenty of napkins for us because this will get a little messy. My name is Miguel Alzugaray, and I'm the owner of Food Tours of Bristol. Yeah, I started up just over a year and a half ago. Used my experience working in hospitality. So I've been in hospitality and tourism for 20 years now. And I was working for a food tour business in Vancouver, Canada, where I'm from. About 2 years ago, started kind of dreaming up what a food tour might look like in Bristol. And fortunately had the connections here in Wapping Wharf to chat with some restaurants, and was able to select my favorite 7 and launch my gourmet tour first in November of 2023.
And you've had some very happy customers today. Everyone really enjoying it.
Yeah.
What makes a good food tour?
The key, I guess, is have good food, have some interesting stories behind it as well. What a food tour should do is introduce you to some foods that you might not always go for on a menu as well. So I hear quite often on our tours, oh, I wouldn't have ordered that dish, but I love it. And so sometimes they get introduced to some new bits, and hopefully and usually go back to these restaurants afterwards as well and try the rest of their menus or those same items they had. So.
And there we are, the economy aspect of this. What does it mean for the restaurants by threading this tour together that you have done?
Yeah, I think the other thing that I've taken into account, having been in the industry myself, is I pay for the tastings that we receive. So making sure that I'm bringing a bit of money at the front, introducing new guests to their business and telling their story. So I'm almost like a marketing company, essentially, where I'm telling their story, introducing them to new guests. And then now with social media as well. I do features for Instagram. I'm just trying to add value to the restaurant, knowing how much the industry is struggling right now, and every little bit helps. So I'm not looking to kind of extract anything from the restaurant itself.
But that's interesting. It's a sensitive relationship between tour guide and restaurant, isn't it? You don't want to be seen to be extractive then. You want to be seen to be beneficial for them.
Having been in the industry and worked in restaurants, different restaurants in my career, the last thing I want to do is when the staff see my group come in, for them to become more stressed out or to be like, oh no, it's the food tour guy again. So I want it to be a welcome environment for them, but also for the guests, and that kind of meshes nicely together. And that's why I'm like the middle person, essentially, to make sure that both sides are happy. So I take into account the staff at the businesses just as much as I do the guests as well.
Today, everyone taking part in the food tour lives in Bristol, and Miguel says lots of his customers are locals keen to know their city better. Most on our trip have received their ticket as a gift.
Yeah, I'm so full. I'm rolling home. I am rolling home.
That's a terrible shame that you can't fit these pancakes in.
Oh,
but
shut
never mind.
up, Father.
For father and daughter, Andrew and Molly, who started doing food tours after they'd exhausted all the history tours they could find, their morning was simply about spending time together.
What did you make of it?
Absolutely incredible. I am fussy. I am a beige eater. I am very annoying to cook for, and every single stop on that tour was incredible. Every single one. If I didn't want to eat it, I didn't have to. They found me an alternative at one stop. I was like, oh, that's amazing.
Very nice. Yeah, it was a lot of everything. You had vegan, you had meat. We had lots of meat.
Yeah.
And finishing off with white chocolate pancakes.
You can't go wrong.
No.
And you ate stuff you wouldn't normally eat?
I avoided pizza because I don't like cheese, and had the pizza and it was lovely.
I am 31 and that is the first time I've ever seen my dad eat pizza. And then when asked what his favourite dish of 7 restaurants were, it was pizza. I was floored. If I wasn't already sat down, whoa, incredible.
Really nice. Yeah, it was.
Good present?
It was a very nice present, yes.
Happy Father's Day.
Roll on Father's Day next year. Yes. How are you going to top this? Well,
I've heard there's a gourmet tour. That might be on my list.
But there's a good point there, isn't it? Because they do make good presents, don't they, these tours?
Well, I've made a point the last couple of years to make memories. So we lost my brother in 2021, and your birthday was one of the first ones afterwards, wasn't it? And I can remember you saying that you wanted time. Every time someone would be like, what do you want for your birthday? It was time, it was memories, time with family.
I've got enough stuff. It's just building memories, which is...
Exactly.
It was lovely.
Exactly.
Molly and Andrew building memories, part of a new movement that's maybe doing just a bit more for all of us. Thanks for listening. Hope it was food for thought. Guy Haywood, the founder of the Pilgrim Trust, who you heard in the podcast, said, sadly, long after I'd turned off the microphone, that what he was trying to do in his pilgrimages through the fields of grain and vegetables was to re-enchant food, get us to feel the mystery and marvellousness of the richness of what's around us. It could be the motto of the food programme. The producer of this podcast was Robin Markwell, working from the food programme HQ at the offices of the BBC in Bristol.